So, all right, let's transition to this. So you did mention at the top of the show, Hedron and Icosa, when we were looking at that correlation to, I guess it was to Pulse, yeah, at the top of the show, Axis. So,
Mm-hmm.
I these have fallen asleep, and everybody, I think the consensus is people love Hedron and Icosa. Everybody loves Alex McWhirter. And obviously he's kind of gone away working on something really exciting, and I'd like to get actually your thoughts on what that exactly could look like. I know we aren't necessarily privy to that, so I don't think, but something to combine the Hedrons, the Icosas on both chains, possibly, and maybe something with staking them and or hex on both chains, or one hex on the other chain, or vice versa. First off, what do you, both of you guys, one at a time, know about, or how could you fill in the blanks on what he may be doing with that? And then let's actually look at Hedron and Icosa charts, if you would, and just have a huge conversation about them, because Icosa is really interesting, because I think that's the one that's actually been at parity, and I think the Ethereum version has actually surpassed the Pulse version a couple of times. So first off, Axis, what do you make of what Alex has in the works, and what do you think he could be doing with these?
So it seemed, well, so in terms of the price action, the market has definitely forgotten about these two assets mostly, I would
Right.
say. And so, because like we were saying before, based on that correlations we brought up earlier, the they, because they're not being traded so heavily and the volumes are kind of low, you can see like $5,000, $6,000, $3,000, and these are 3-day intervals. So over 3 days, people are trading $5,000-$6,000 the whole market of this coin. It makes sense why they're highly correlated with Pulse, is because they're just floating up and down with it, or with whatever Pulse is doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what that's done is that they're, both of the prices on both chains are trending toward the same levels. I'm just going to use Hedron here as an example. Here's Hedron on in dollar terms on Ethereum, the red line here, and here's the price on Pulse. So the difference here is about, it says 9.7%, but if you just put like a $3,000 buy through, this would pop this right up to near parity. So it's like, in terms of liquidity, they're basic, for all intents and purposes, they're practically the same price.
Right.
Under no trading volume. And then in terms of like, so the market's already forward looking and seeing like, hey, this is fair value for this thing. And in terms of what Alex might be building, there's, you hear about rocket pool forks, you hear about
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the stuff that he had listed out in that like 4 stages of growth for this thing. I think the fact that you can redeem Hedron on either chain for the HMI staked hex instances is going to bring, it's doing what we're seeing in the price already, which is they're going to have this effectively the same dollar value at least, which I think is cool to see that the market's pricing that in already. And what it does is it's the first time, at least in the hex ecosystem, that they're, instead of there being competing tokens on 2 chains, like he's trying to bring them all under one umbrella to unify the system. And wouldn't it be poetic if Alex Synergy unifies the Icosa, the hex system with Icosa Hedron V2, right? Where it's like basically, no matter if you're trading E Hedron or P Hedron, it's effectively the same asset with doubled supply.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be awesome. Yeah, I really want to see it. I mean, that was, we all remember, we're fond of the early days after PulseChain launched, when the only argument was just E-Hex and P-Hex parity and all that. How far we've come away from that. But yeah, it would be very interesting to see Alex kind of spearhead that vibe throughout the whole ecosystem. Ewok, is there any other ideas you have about how he could be doing that, or what his plans are with those?
No, but I think if it's successful, I would love to see something similar with Hex. I'd like to bring that together as well. So, but no, I don't have any other ideas. I have no idea what when Alex is quiet, he, I'm sure he's building. I know they wanted to get something, wasn't it? They wanted something released by the end of the year or very close to it. Was that? Do you know?
I don't
Axis?
really. Yeah, I don't really remember.
I remember that he was talking about Q1 and Q2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did want to have it. I think it's coming. I would expect to hear something by Q2. And he usually doesn't talk about it till it's almost ready. So
Right.
maybe we can look at that time frame, which would be, there's a couple of key dates in HEX. January 5th is typically a good time for HEX price wise. And in April's are always a significant time. Basically that window between March and May, like that's where HEX has always made its biggest moves ups or down. So that's going to be a sweet time frame there. That Q2 is really where everybody's got their attention focused at. I think short term we have the HEX conference coming up this weekend, and that's usually followed by some sort of price action. Last year it was a big pump, 700% pump that led through March. This year, who knows what it's going to be, but then after that's kind of settled, dust is settled, then we can look to Q2 as being pivotal for HEX as a whole, but then also with whatever Alex has got brewing up over there.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I think that'll be awesome, but just more, since obviously your expertise is kind of more like the TA side of things. I mean, I do think that HEDRON and ICOSA are just great leverage kind of on HEX right now. I mean, what do you think the opportunity is there with both of them at the moment? Like, are you don't have to answer whether you're DCAing into them, but
my favorite thing price wise here on HEDRON is like, look at this move here back to all time high. That's that's like a 50x. So if you're waiting for like the 50 to 100x on Pulse, well, you really know that it's possible here because nobody's talking about this one. This is off everybody's radar, and it's putting in a double bottom right now, or it's trying to, right? So it's got the single, here's the double bottom, hoping that maybe some good news comes out to give it a little spark of life. But the dollar chart looks pretty beat up on HEDRON. So, yeah, I kind of gave you the upside possibilities, 50x totally in the cards. I think that this breakdown from here was kind of just characteristic of the fork and the drop in HEX on EHEX price and stuff, that's deeply undervalued as well, as we've shown a double pi cycle bottom. But when you measure this thing in HEX terms, it's actually not at all-time lows. It's actually up.
Wow.
Quite a bit, actually. It's up 340% from the double bottom of last June. Or it would be, 2 Junes ago, or 2022.
22, yeah.
Yeah. So this to me is like this range-bound price action inside of here is like maybe last call. Before this thing starts to heat up.
And, that's a good point of that, too, is, I don't even know that we can look at HEDRON and or ICOSA as cycle 2 coins because, I mean, HEDRON launched March of 2022, correct?
Correct.
I mean,
February 24th that week, so it was the week going into March.
Right. So basically when the world was burning. I mean, when the whole cryptocurrency, everything was going to shit. Yeah. So I think I saw a cut up. I think it was you. I assume it was since you just brought that up. But I saw a cut up clip from Kaisa, whatever it is, on Twitter the other day with you talking about that. And yeah, I mean, I think there's crazy leverage opportunities with both of those right now, HEDRON and ICOSA. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. Do you think right now we're just kind of seeing it not move much because people are just, and admittedly, this is what I've really done. I haven't really DCA'd much of it yet. I'm warming up to the idea of it, though, and I've really just been rolling the stakes over. You know what I mean? I think that's what most people are doing. Yeah.
If you're sitting on Watts's or ICOSA HEDRON stakes, you're just claiming, compounding, and rolling. Right. And you've been doing that the whole time. I did actually go back and buy some eHedron the other day. And it was my first purchase of eHedron in a very, very, very long time.
Yeah.
And now that we're talking about it, expect Hedron to pump a little bit now. It won't go straight up, but it doesn't take any economic energy to push this thing up. And whether you're getting it on Pulse or on Ethereum, you always just want to get the cheaper one because once that V2 goes live, they are going to get closer and closer in price due to their utility. So, I think net it's looking good.
Something else that we were talking about too that nobody else was really doing. I mean, the cost of the HSIs at auction, you can pick up so many T-shares for cheap, and I just think it was so undervalued, and nobody was using it for the longest time, and I don't know.
Dude,
You were
Ewok. There was a guy in my group that was buying. Don't quote me on this exact number, but something saying I'm pretty sure he bought hex through HSIs at the equivalent of what was 1/10 of a penny hex. I know for sure that that he was getting the cost for him to get the Hedron from the market and to buy the HSIs. He was getting them at like 85 to 90% off market value.
Right.
And that would have been going on, I want to say it was either in May, June time frame when we had that crash on EHEX down to a penny. That's when, Hedron was completely off the map, crashing in price, and it was a huge opportunity. Let's see here if I can find this. I got to see the chart again so let's look at it here. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, so he was getting them for like you're saying 85, 90% off.
Yeah.
During this time frame here. Would have been June. So what is that? If let's just take a candle close here, minus 90%. Oh shit, I can't get my scales even farther. He was getting these things for, this is saying 0.0008. So, but in reality, I think it was closer to 1 to 2/10 of a cent. Yeah. And isn't that ironic that the market came down and got close to that price?
Yeah.
So so is there not more power in Hedron and Icosa than the market can really see right now to price forward how the market's actually feeling about the ecosystem as a whole? Remember, they're all derivatives of HEX T-shares. Yeah, so you would make sense that they would actually trade fundamentally somehow in line with the rest of the system.
I think there's a lot of signs pointing to them right now. I think it's like and it's one of those things where you totally understand people not buying them right now because, I mean, the assets everybody wants are Pulse, PulseX, HEX, and they are so ridiculously depressed. Why would anybody be thinking about Hedron or Icosa? But now that we're making this uptrend a little bit, I mean, as small as it may be, a 2x off the lows, really, I think we're getting to the time where throwing some tickets into that area might be a good thing to do.
So here's our correlations matrix.
Yeah.
The Hedrons and Icosas on both chains, they're pretty much 1-to-1 tracking each other. And then next up is PulseX and Pulse. And then Inc. And so that's not even tracking HEX as much as it is the other things. So
crazy. Yeah,
so
it's more
they're really, it seems like they're really tracking that PulseX, which it's explained by what we've said before about the low market volume and that most of the interest is in Pulse and PulseX. So if Pulse and PulseX is going to pump, it's going to pump them along with it just due to their bonded liquidity.
Right.
Yeah.